Sometimes Earth moves in slow motion, and sometimes, well, it doesn't. Underwater volcanoes have thrown up brand new islands, only to erase them again. Changes to the continents can literally rewrite the climate, and some of the most active volcanoes out there aren't even tied to a continent at all. But before we crack the surface, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, do all that fun stuff. It really helps the channel. With that being said, let's get into it, because I'm Mike with List 25, and these are 25 disturbing facts about our changing continents. 25. Changing continents can rewrite the climate. Now, before you say anything, I'm not going to be talking about global warming. Today, we're looking at changing continents. And while you wouldn't think land crawling a few inches a year could mess with the weather, shifting continents have completely upended Earth's climate more than once. When the supercontinent Pangaea began breaking apart about 175 million years ago, it rewired ocean currents and wind belts, turning a hot, stable planet into one full of climate swings. Later, when India rammed into Asia around 35 million years ago, the crash lifted the Himalayas high enough to bend global wind patterns. That rise helped create the monsoon system, which billions of people still depend on today. So these changes led to continent-scale events that can shift rainfall, trigger ice ages, or heat the planet far beyond what humans could survive. 24. Continental drift could redraw global borders. Continents don't just move the land, they also move the goalposts when it comes to the Earth's resources. As plates drift and expose new crust, they change how we define continents' shelves and the zones where countries can legally claim rights, meaning power and money. The recent scientific recognition of Zealandia as Earth's 8th continent, for example, led to arguments about sovereignty over underwater minerals. With fossil fuels on the way out, critical minerals like nickel, cobalt, and rare earth elements are suddenly more valuable than oil. The catch is that most of those resources lie offshore, in the deep sea, where there's no clear ownership. There's no global agreement yet on how to handle that, which means continental drift is setting up a fight over who gets to mine the seafloor. 23. A future supercontinent could crush civilization as we know it. Our continents are only halfway through their latest cycle. Just as Pangaea once merged the land into one giant mass, the Earth is on track to build another supercontinent in the next 200 to 250 million years. And the scenarios scientists are picturing aren't pretty. If the Atlantic keeps widening while the Pacific closes, we'd get Novo Pangaea, a stitched-together monster world with one ocean wrapped around it. If spreading slows or reverses, Pangaea Ultima could form, crushing the Americas and Africa into a mega atoll with an inland sea. Other models say we might end up with Orica or Amasia, where the continents migrate north and slam together around the pole. Each outcome would completely scramble the weather, tides, and ocean chemistry. 22. It shapes life and death. When continents split, life tends to explode. When they fuse, diversity stalls, or even crashes. The reason is simple enough. Fragmented continents create more coastlines and shallow seas, which are the hotbeds of marine life. They also isolate populations, giving rise to new species. But when landmasses merge into a supercontinent, those habitats shrink, currents shift, and ecosystems flatten out. It's like the planet itself presses pause on evolution. Our current tectonic shuffle is already closing off seas that once teemed with wildlife. If today's biodiversity crisis wipes out too much, the Earth's natural recovery might be far slower than we'd like to believe. 21. It comes with violence. Plate tectonics usually crawls along at a very slow pace. Still, every so often, that pressure releases violently, and when it does, you get disasters like the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami in Japan. That single event unleashed a magnitude 9.0 quake, one of the most powerful we've ever recorded, and a wall of water that raced towards the shore. Waves more than 30 feet high barreled over the seawalls, flooded cities, and left almost 20,000 dead. That same slow grind of the world's drifting continents also led to a 7.8 magnitude earthquake in Nepal a mere 4 years later, killing 9,000 in the process. 20. The GPS can't keep up. Continental changes don't always come with disaster sirens. In Australia, they showed up as a glitch in the maps. That's because the land down under is sprinting northeast at about 7 centimeters or 2.8 inches a year, about as fast as your fingernails grow. And yes, said like that, doesn't sound like much, but it adds up quickly. Compared to a map from the 90s, Australia already has shifted roughly 6 feet from where it was. That gap is big enough to throw off our GPS system, which is a serious problem if you're steering a drone or a driverless car. So in 2017, the Australian government had to update the country's entire geodetic system and shifted every map point 1.8 meters northeast to get everything lined up again. Geoscience Australia has said they plan to update it every few years now, instead of waiting decades like before. 19. The Himalayas are still getting higher. When India slammed into Asia 50 million years ago, the pressure was hard enough to crumble Tibet by hundreds of miles. Hundreds. That crash doubled the crust beneath the Himalayas and lifted the world's tallest mountains into the sky. So it made sense that we thought the Himalayas were supported by a double-thick crust, with India and Asia stacked underneath. But that idea doesn't actually work. Once the crust gets deep enough, the heat turns it soft, think yogurt, and that won't support mountains that high. Researchers now think that there might be a slice of mantle wedged between the two crusts. That tougher layer could lock the whole structure in place and might be why the Himalayas can still stand so tall. That push, however, is still going on. Every year, it moves India another 0.8 inches north while raising the Himalayas another 0.4 inches higher. 18. It caused North America's trail of supervolcanoes. The movement of the continents also leads to a string of other effects none of us ever think about. Point in fact, Yellowstone supervolcano might be world famous thanks to Hollywood, but it's not unique. The hotspot powering it has been fixed in the Earth's mantle for at least 16 million years. North America just happens to be drifting steadily southwest across it. That movement has punched out caldera after caldera from Nevada right through Idaho's Snake River Plain, ending at today's Yellowstone. Each caldera on that path is like a footprint from a past eruption. They line up youngest to oldest because the continent kept sliding over the hotspot. So as North America keeps drifting, it'll simply burn through the crust again a bit farther northeast. When that happens, Yellowstone will be yesterday's news, and a brand new supervolcano will take its place. 17. It's tearing Africa in two. The movie business might have gotten a few things right over the years, though. In 2018, drivers on Kenya's Mai Mahiu Narok highway were going about their day when a gaping crack opened up right where the road should have been. Traffic stopped cold, repair crews rushed in, and photos of the event ended up everywhere. It was a creepy coincidence because scientists already know Africa is literally tearing itself in half. Most of the continent rests on the Nubian plate, but the eastern side sits on the Somali plate, and the two are slowly drifting apart. The East African Rift, stretching 1,800 miles, is the scar that proves it. That split has triggered earthquakes, fueled volcanoes, and reshaped valleys. And one day, and by day I mean 5 to 10 million years from now, it will peel East Africa away to form a new continent with a brand new ocean of its own. 16. North America almost went the same way. Africa isn't the only continent with a scar. 1 billion years ago, North America also almost ripped itself in half. The Mid-Continental Rift started in what's now Michigan and carved south through the Midwest, a fracture zone more than 2,000 miles long. For a while, it looked like a brand new ocean was about to open up, one that would have sliced the US into 2 separate continents. And then, it just stopped. No one knows why, but something in the planet's shifting interior cut the process short, sealing the wound before the continent broke apart completely. The rift is still there, hidden beneath layers of rock, but you can trace its arc if you look at the outline of the Great Lakes and across the northern Midwest. 15. America's East Coast is shrinking. I should also mention that there are parts of this story we're actively making worse ourselves. Patches of the US East Coast are slowly sinking. Cities like New York, Baltimore, and Norfolk are dropping bit by bit, about 1/10 of an inch every year. The fall isn't even either. Some spots in the Carolinas and Georgia are slipping 2 or 3 times faster. One reason is leftover pressure from the last ice age. Land up north is still rebounding upward, which tips the southern coastline down. Add shifts in the Gulf Stream pushing water against the coast, plus the way soft sediments settle and compact, and the ground is already losing its fight. On top of that, humans have made it worse by pumping groundwater and draining wetlands. Put it all together, and you've got a coastline giving way from multiple directions at once. And as someone who lives in Florida, great. 14. It's a self-driving machine. Right now, the Atlantic is busy pushing continents apart. The seafloor cracks open at the mid-Atlantic ridge, and at that spot, we gain a couple of inches of ocean every year. Look at that over a couple of million years, and we can end up with several miles of extra space. Our scientists always figured this was about pulling. Plates sink into the mantle at subduction zones, and the drag from those collisions tugs everything else apart. But the most incredible discovery from this region over the last few years has shown that there's actually a hot upwelling under the ridge that's actively pushing them open from below. Which means the Atlantic is not just a crack in the Earth's crust, it's a crack that's pushing back. 13. The Pacific is collapsing. Now before you say, duh, let me just make it clear that the Pacific's problem isn't just the Atlantic's growth. It's that the ring of fire circling it for 25,000 miles is constantly dragging the ocean floor under. Just think of it like a giant bathtub with the drain wide open. The subduction zones around Japan, South America, Alaska, and Indonesia are basically working like conveyor belts, pulling whole slabs of crust back into the earth. That's why the whole area is circled by earthquakes and volcanoes. It's literally the ground being swallowed. Every year that process chews away a few more inches of the seafloor, so that eventually the Pacific will shrink to nothing and get swallowed up by the continents pressing in from all sides. 12. Iceland is splitting apart. If you want to see continental drift happening in real time, go to Iceland. The island is located right on the mid-Atlantic ridge, the seam where the North American and Eurasian plates pull apart at about an inch a year. That constant stretch rips the ground open, feeds magma into the cracks, and builds new crust, resulting in an island that's growing and breaking at the same time. The consequences have reached far beyond the island itself. If you had to travel anywhere by plane in 2010, you'd know what I'm talking about. Eyjafjallajökull erupted and filled the skies with so much ash that flights around Europe were grounded for days. But the bigger danger, however, is for the people of Iceland themselves. The fishing town of Grindavik was in the spotlight after a nearby eruption fractured the ground so badly that the town is now in danger of something called crack collapse. 11. It can shorten the day. Some earthquakes rattle islands. Others, like Chile's 2010 magnitude 8.8 beast, rattled the earth. The destruction on land was bad enough, but what makes this one terrifying is that it actually changed how the earth spins. When the Nazca Plate thrust under South America, it shoved mass inward and sped up the planet's rotation, the same trick a figure skater uses by pulling in their arms. NASA crunched the numbers and found the quake shaved 1.26 millionths of a second off every single day. Too small for us to notice, but measurable all the same. On top of that, Earth's figure axis, the balance line our mass spins around, shifted about 3 inches. Think about that for a second. A single earthquake left our planet off kilter about that much. 10. It can reverse rivers. Depending on where you live, you may or may not know that the Mississippi River once flowed backwards. In the winter of 1811-1812, the New Madrid Fault cut loose with a chain of earthquakes so massive that they were felt across half the continent. Reports came in from as far as Boston, where church bells clanged from the shaking. For the people along the river, the ground rolled like waves, forests collapsed, and the water turned the other way. Boatmen reported that the Mississippi was surging upstream for hours, stranding rafts and even creating temporary waterfalls. Entire villages were wiped out. A new lake was born, and the area was battered with another 2,000 quakes over the next 5 months, with 3 of them ranking among the biggest in U.S. history. 9. We can't stop it. I already talked about how the U.S. East Coast is sinking, in part because, well, we messed with the land. But that's not the only way we're poking the Earth's tectonic pressure points. Mining, drilling, groundwater extraction, even damming rivers. All of that shifts weight around the crust. It's not overly spectacular like plates slamming together, but it's enough to unbalance local fault lines. So much so that some scientists think that building the Zhipingpu Dam in China, which filled with nearly 320 million tons of water, helped trigger the 2008 Sichuan earthquake that killed almost 90,000 people. It's called induced seismicity, and it can be incredibly subtle. Pull enough groundwater out of the ground, and the crust can sag. Flood a valley with a massive reservoir, and the added weight can flex faults that haven't moved in centuries. 8. We might just be looking at the side effects. There are two gigantic blobs under the Earth's mantle, one under the Pacific and the other under Africa, and they're hotter than everything around them, larger than any continent, and have been around for at least 1 billion years. Scientists call them LLSVPs, or Large Low Seismic Velocity Provinces. They only show up when seismic waves from massive earthquakes pass through, and even then, they're hard to read. The waves slow down, which suggests heat, but they don't lose a lot of energy, which is where things get weird. They don't fit any of our models. So researchers think they might be made of massive crystals. Bigger grains mean fewer boundaries, which helps those waves keep their energy. For all we know, they could be controlling volcanic hotspots, or work like magnets. They might have even played a role in how the supercontinents came together, but until we improve our data, we just won't know for sure. 7. It can end up creating killer dust. Most people credit the Himalayas for drying out Central Asia, but that's only part of the story. The real shift came when two smaller ranges, the Hungay and the Altai, shoved their way up out of the crust. As they rose, they built massive rain shadows that cut off moisture and drained the land. That's when the Gobi Desert was born, and it spread fast. Some areas lost nearly 90% of the rainfall, and what used to be scrubland turned into bare dust. And the dust didn't just stay put. It rides the winds to Beijing and even makes the jump across the Pacific to California. Today, the Gobi holds the title of fastest growing desert on Earth. Every year, it swallows another 1,400 square miles, which works out to about the size of Rhode Island disappearing off the map. 6. It might be pushing South Africa up. Satellite data shows that the country's landmass has been rising about 6 millimeters, or a quarter of an inch, every year since 2012. A shift that size, spread across an entire country, means the crust is being forced to move. The problem is, nobody can quite agree on what's causing it. Some researchers have linked it to mantle flow deep underground. A swelling in the crust, known as the Quathlamba hotspot, might be giving the region a boost. The places that rose the most were also hammered by intense drought, so others believe that losing that much water mass could have made the crust rebound upward. Either way, the ground itself is moving. 5. Ancient continents in the mantle. When people start talking about billions of years, the timeline becomes almost impossible to picture. Our brains just aren't built to measure time on that scale. But some of the Earth's very first crust may have slipped under the surface billions of years ago and never really gone away. Instead, it could still be drifting around in the mantle today. Researchers have found ancient mantle rocks that erupted at spreading centers. They're chemically distinct, low in oxygen, and most likely formed in the Archean era between 4 and 2.5 billion years ago. We've also done studies at the Kapval Craton in South Africa and found what looks like pieces of Earth's first surface, dating back to the Hadean era over 4 billion years ago. So some of Earth's first continents might still be helping to fuel volcanoes and earthquakes today. 4. It leads to thousands of earthquakes every year. The continents drift, grind, collide, and pull apart. And all that motion is what makes the planet shake non-stop. There are roughly 12 to 14,000 earthquakes every year. That's dozens every single day. Most of them are tiny microquakes, too small for people to notice, but it's a fact that there's always a bit of movement under our feet. The ones we do feel are far fewer, but that doesn't make it any better. Roughly 100 earthquakes a year hit magnitude 7 or higher, the kind strong enough to wreck cities. In 2024 alone, there were 89 in the 6 to 6.9 range and 10 in the 7 to 7.9 range, all powered by plates shifting under the continents. Luckily, no monster 8.0 plus quake struck that year, but history shows it's only a matter of time. 3. Some land isn't attached to a continent at all. You'd think land needs to sit firmly on a continental plate, but sometimes it doesn't. For example, the Seychelles microcontinent in the western Indian Ocean is a fragment of land that drifted away from India and Madagascar over 80 million years ago and still sits above its own slice of continental crust, even though it's not connected to a bigger landmass. We even have ocean bottom volcanoes, like the Canary Islands or Réunion, that aren't glued to any continent. They're formed by mantle plumes punching hot magma up through the oceanic crust. Réunion's Piton de la Fournaise is actually so active that it's still erupting today, and it's only powered by an ancient hotspot. 2. It can change the map in just a few years. If today's list left you with the impression that every single continental change takes millions of years, I need to make a quick edit. Sometimes the Earth rearranges shockingly fast. Case in point, in Tonga, an underwater volcano erupted beginning in 2014 and built a brand new island, only for it to be blown apart again by 2022. Born and gone in 7 years. And then there's Hawaii. Those islands are moving northwest on the Pacific plate at about 4 inches per year. Give it 50, and, well, you do the math. Eventually the change will end up closer to Japan. There's even a sideways shift that can be a lot more brutal. During the massive earthquake in Japan in 2011, parts of the country were shoved about 2 meters closer to North America. 2 meters. Every single day. 1. Antarctica is hiding a monster cluster of volcanoes. Antarctica is not the quiet, frozen block most people imagine. Beneath West Antarctica lies a volcano field with more than 130 volcanoes, including 91 that were only discovered in 2017. Some peaks rise as high as 12,500 feet, completely hidden under miles of ice. What makes this important is where they sit. The cluster lies along the West Antarctic Rift System, a zone where the continent itself is being stretched and pulled apart. Rift systems like this are cracks in the crust, and volcanoes often build right on top of them. Scientists have already found evidence of eruptions as recent as a few thousand years ago, which means the system hasn't gone completely quiet. And if it wakes up again, the most isolated continent on Earth could become the most unstable in a heartbeat. And that's a wrap. But you know the drill. Before you go, I want to know, with fossil fuels losing value, which resources are now considered more valuable than oil? Is it A, gold and silver, B, nickel, cobalt, and rare earth elements, C, freshwater reserves, or D, timber and farmland? Put your answers in the comments below, and you know what? While you're there, let me know what kind of large-scale Earth Sciences lists you'd like to see next. And if you haven't had your fix just yet, our related video, 25 Biggest Ocean Mysteries Scientists Can't Explain, is waiting for you. It's got disappearing islands, purple blobs, glowing orbs, and ruins that, well, might be man-made, but we'll probably never know for sure. That link will pop up here in just a second. And as always, like, share, comment, subscribe, click the notification bell. Thank you guys so much, and I'll catch you next time. I'm gonna go shift this way. The continent joke sucked.